Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 147 of Into the Outer Realms. Next week, while I'm thinking of it, Constance Victoria Bridge is going to rejoin us here, sensing a theme here, going back to Theuba prophecy, and the audience seems to be expanding, like the universe. Maybe we're going to find out about that tonight from Mark Fiorentino, but seems to be really enjoying this more cosmic material. So we're going to do this. She's going to talk about her moon book. Last time she was on, she talked about the Moon Encyclopedia. Everyone really loved it. She's a wonderful speaker. She's going to have some new news about a new book that she's working on. And that is going to be our 3-year anniversary of Into the Outer Realms. So very good stuff. So Mark has been very popular. He is the author of Master of Reality, and Mark brings a quantum physics. He brings intelligent design, a deep belief in God, which fits absolutely beautifully. So I love to give him this forum to talk about it because it makes so much sense, and I think it applies to a lot of us. So tonight he's going to do a PowerPoint presentation about the Big Bang, about star formation, planet formation. I mean, we're going into the outer realms for 3 years now, but of what do they consist? How were they made and what's happening with them? So always when Mark is on the show, I think you're going to find some things very provocative, very eye-opening. And that's why I'm enjoying having him back. And in April, he's also going to come back. That'll be his 4th appearance. And we may have him come back throughout the year with these presentations, talking about the speed of light, because what you know or what you've been taught or what you assume, as explained in Master of Reality and by Mark on this show twice, is not what you think. So let's roll our opening, go properly into the outer realms, bring Mark on, and then he's really going to be in the driver's seat. You're not going to hear from me too much tonight, especially in the first half of the show, as he takes us through some pretty amazing things. So welcome, everyone. There exists a realm beyond our wildest dreams, a realm beyond reality that the gatekeepers and guardians have always told us consists of nothing but tricks of the eye, weather balloons, swamp gas, sand cranes, fairy tale myths of monsters, crackpot conspiracy theories, and desperate cries for attention.
We know this realm exists, and it's just beyond the horizon. The preset path, the well-worn walkways where the cynics want us to stay.
Instead, give this a listen. Put on your headphones, adjust your volume, close your eyes, and fasten your mental seatbelts, because the twilight-tinged turnoff from reality's alluring highway is looming just ahead.
We're about to leave the plane of the easily explained, couldn't possibly be's, and the no way I just saw what I saw's, for the spaces and places where everything is possible, and if you stay long enough, even probable. We're about to take a journey into the outer realms. All right, so for his 3rd appearance on the show, author of Master of Reality, Mark Fiorentino. Mark, what an honor. Good evening.
Thank you, sir. Nice to be here again. Looking forward to the discussion.
Is that a background you're using, or do you have that beautiful tree outside your window with lovely weather?
It's a background I picked. I like to pick things that are soothing.
Yeah, that is definitely soothing. That's very nice. It's been so dreary here in East Ohio, I can't even tell you. Like, it's going to be a long winter.
Yeah.
But anyway, just in general, how are things going? I know you're going to give us an update at the end of the night about your ongoing experiments, as much detail as is prudent. But how are things going since your last visit?
They're going well. Working on the stuff that you know about anti-gravity. Some other projects also getting into you. Oh, you guys are going to love this. I met a guy named Les Durant and he is into recording UFOs.
Oh,
And all the technology that he uses to do that. I've ordered the equipment. I'm going to be setting up a live webcam stream 24/7, pointed at the sky. There's a certain part of my sky I have seen UFOs on several times. And it's always been my theory that if you just keep a camera going all the time, especially at night when you're asleep, they're going overhead in a very frequent amount of times, like maybe every other day or so. And that's what Les says. He spots something every other day. And I went over the tapes with him, and I'm really excited about that because that's always something I wanted to do, to start a UFO Skywatch program. And so be working on that.
that's terrific. I tend to see orbs, and they tend to move in a vertical line.
Les sees lots of orbs on his cameras.
Yeah, I see them during the day, and they will sometimes split the formations of the, whether you call them chemtrails or just exotic design. They often look like an anarchist symbol to me, right? You got the triangles and then you got the lines through them, and the orbs will come through and kind of break those up. It started about 3 years ago. And Tanya and I have had some success with calling them in, so to speak. That sounds a little too authoritative, but we will concentrate. There's a woman out of Australia that says hum or play sentimental journey. Now, it could be the mathematical formula. I'm studying musical
That makes
theory now.
sense to me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we had an extraordinary experience with one of our contributors, Mike Giannetti. So I'm excited that you're doing that. And if you ever want to share footage, if you capture anything, that will be great.
Oh, I definitely will be doing that. I'll be uploading to YouTube, put some on Facebook, which you can, see as I do them.
Yeah.
I got a real high res camera coming, and I'm excited. I've been wanting to do this for years, and Les has inspired me and is helping me with it. And so we'll see what we can do. Hopefully, get other people interested in doing it. The more, the
Yeah.
better.
And that's why, to me, and we are going to get started with the PowerPoint, but the move from UFO, unidentified flying object, to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, makes a lot of sense to me. Now, a lot of our colleagues say, oh, that's just the government making FOIA harder and all this kind of stuff. And now it's UAP, underground and unidentified, and, these transdimensional. But it makes perfect sense to me because I've seen the light worms in footage, and the orbs are not identified. They're not flying objects. That's a wrong. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, he's got lots of orbs too, and he's into that. So you guys are right on target with that. I'm not so much interested in the orbs because I'm interested in the technology and making contact. But the orbs is a real thing. I mean, I don't know. I think they're spiritual beings of some sort or interdimensional beings. I don't know. Getting them on camera and maybe doing some analysis uh, could be very helpful. And maybe in the future, have running more than one cam, maybe an infrared and normal light, and something like that may yield some more information.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the very least, they're interdimensional beings of some sort, and more than likely, they're spiritual beings for the most part, I think. Uh,
I Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that that's a good segue into the PowerPoint. So Mark and I are going to go a little small here, but he's prepared this wonderful PowerPoint. He has control of it, which is wonderful. So Mark, the lecture podium is yours.
oh, okay. Well, we start with the first slide here. I'm going to try to go through this so we have a chance for questions. I want you folks out there listening to feel free to write down on what slide we're on, whatever, and a question you have, and we'll try to come back and get them all in. So I'm going to get on the move here. The first statement, I am. This is something that's said a lot by people who have near-death experiences, and when God greets them, he says, I am. And you think, well, what does that mean? He's just claiming, he's just saying, I exist. That's what that means. It is my belief that in the beginning there was only God. Sometime after creation began and the expansion of the spiritual realm occurred, beings, dimensions, and universes were added as divine thoughts. All of this was accomplished via the power of intention. Later on, you're going to see that everything is God. The ether, all material objects, everything. It's an intelligent design scheme we're talking about tonight. So, space or the ether is part of God consciousness. Then, via the divine power of intention, the first iteration of our universe came into being. This is the start of the cyclic universe, which is an eternal object with one beginning and infinite cycles of death and rebirth. So here I got in below in gold here, we have a statement that comes from God to Father Rick Wendell. This is very important because other near-death experiencers have also reported this. He says to God says to Rick, one commandment for man, love one another. I've heard that many times from other people as well. All of this three-dimensional world is within God. There is nothing outside of God. Everything within this physical universe has to correspond to laws, and God set those laws. They are immutable as God is immutable. None of this, what we see and experience, is an accident. It is intentioned by God. Time does not really exist. God is outside of time. The people in the afterlife are outside of time. In heaven, we have a perception of time in the physical world. That perception changes according to our circumstances, and we all know that's true. If you're miserable, time seems to drag on forever. If you're having a great time, time goes like that. It's all
Right.
about the perception and our circumstances. Now, on this slide, I have the simplified standard model of particle physics. Why I bothered to do this is that in the beginning, there really was probably only two particles, the electron and the positron. So I'm trying to give you the details of what I think God did in order to form the first cosmic egg, that gigantic thing where all the matter and energy came out of in the Big Bang. Uh, from the positron and the electron, you get the up and down quarks, which happen to be thirds of a charge of an electron and a positron. They make up, see the up, and the down, and the up and down, the proton and the neutron. And you'll see there at the end, the trefoil pattern with the sphere. They're moving in that pattern. That causes mass. It causes them to form the neutron and the proton. The next thing to do is you got all neutrons, you make neutronium, the big cosmic egg, and you got the beginning of this universe. And there are many universes, according to people from near-death experiences. Many universes, maybe an infinite amount. And for this model, this is how it was done, creating the neutron, which had all the material stored away in it necessary to create the universe. And there at the bottom is the cosmic egg, the massive black hole that everything came from. Now, this neutron decay is very important. To physicists, this seems like a random thing, and I want to explain this in detail right here. The free neutron decay is the breath of life for our universe. Neutron decay is not an accidental or haphazard event. It is part of a perfect design. According to super relativity theory, the cosmic egg is a giant black hole made out of solid neutronium, nothing but neutrons. After the cosmic egg explodes, it releases neutron plasma, just individual pieces of neutrons, neutronium spheres, which are basically neutron stars and larger black holes. Neutron spheres of various sizes. Everything the universe needs is stored within the neutron. The end result of the Big Bang is the production of hydrogen atoms, a proton and an electron. This happens via neutron decay. This sort of random thing that physicists think just happens. When you isolate a neutron, within 15 minutes, it turns into a proton and an electron, and that's hydrogen. That's just what the universe needs. It's not an accident, it's by design. And this is rock solid evidence that this is an intelligent design. From that moment, after the Big Bang, when the neutrons are turning into hydrogen. That's the basic building block that the universe needs in order to build stars and planets. In the beginning of each universe cycle, which was before the Big Bang, only two things existed: space, the ether, the quasi-elastic solid, the fundamental field, uh, and then the cosmic egg. It contains all the matter and the energy of the universe and is stored as a solid neutronium at extremely high density. The cosmic egg was formed from the collapse of previous universe. Initially, it was the creation from God that made the first one. The cosmic egg is a super large black hole whose diameter is thousands of light years across. Once the collapse of all the Titan-sized black holes is complete, the new cosmic egg is created. So what I'm saying there is, at the very end of this current universe, there's going to be giant sized black holes that have absorbed many hundreds of millions of galaxies, and they're all coming together. And they all merge and become one again. When this happens, the next cycle will begin. You pass the Fiore threshold, and the next Big Bang happens. Neutronium gas appears at the first 15 minutes, begins converting right into hydrogen. The next universe begins. Along with the neutronium plasma and the gas, neutronium spheres of various sizes come. These are the seeds of life. These spheres are, a few miles around typically, and they are the building blocks for the stars, the galaxies, and the planets. The bigger the sphere, the bigger the star. And some of them are black hole size, so they make big stars. And so we'll move on to next, because I'm going to go into that in more detail. But you get the idea. Everything is coming into place right after the Big Bang starts. Here's something that's covered up. I'll have to fix that later. The evidence exists to support the neutronium Big Bang theory. There is evidence. There's radiation, gamma ray radiation. This radiation was in the form of the most energetic form of all radiation, gamma rays. Over the enormous period of time since the Big Bang, these very high energy, extremely short wavelength gamma rays have lengthened and can now be detected as longer wave like microwave radiation. That's what they call the microwave background. Also, we have detected the electron antineutrino, which is another relic of the Big Bang that has now been detected, and it's called the cosmic neutrino background. So the proton and the electron unite and become hydrogen. This becomes the fuel to create new stars and planets. Star formation theory. Okay. So now I'm going to get into the detail of how a star is built from scratch. According to the superrelativity cosmology model, star formation occurs as a result of the gathering of hydrogen gas that forms atmospheres around spinning neutron stars and small black holes. The hydrogen forms into a highly compressed atmosphere. This atmosphere heats up and triggers the fusion process, and the star is born. All stars are formed from rapidly spinning neutronium spheres. So the current theory is, in this next paragraph, that stars form by gas just coming together, twisting in knots in outer space, and then crushing itself together. That's ridiculous theory. The electrostatic repulsive force, you see this 10 with all the zeros after it? That's how much stronger the repulsive force of two protons is than the gravitational force they put out. They're never going to gravitationally get pulled together in outer space. There's no pressure to do that. The only way this happens, the only way this can work, is if there's a very powerful initial gravitational force coming from a source, in this case, neutronium spheres and black holes, that came out of the Big Bang, that gathered the gas together to make the first stars. So now there's evidence that what I'm saying is true, and it's been accumulated and obtained from NASA. This chart over here kind of shows you exactly what's going on. Uh, the lines that are far apart is the gases that are spinning at the outer atmosphere. And as they converge here into one line, they're moving more and more like a solid. Now, this only goes 50% of the way in. I guess they couldn't penetrate with radar or whatever to see what's at the very core. But this will converge to an even tighter line because at the very core of the sun is a neutronium sphere that is rock solid. So when they were to measure, if they could measure that, they would see it's spinning as a solid. The rest of this is a gas, and as it gets deeper, becomes more and more solid-like. That's what I'm saying in all this evidence here. We also have observed that supernovas always produce a neutron star or black hole. We have observed this. So that's evidence that's just been misinterpreted. Current theory states the core of the supernova collapses into a neutron star or black hole. Superrelativity theory states that the solid neutronium core was already there inside the exploding supernova. All that happens is that the runaway nuclear fusion causes the atmosphere of the star to be blown away from the core of the star, which then reveals the neutronium sphere. The neutron star, the black hole, formed the star. It was already there. And that's where our astrophysicists have it wrong. They think the supernova implodes somehow. Somehow an explosion causes a core to be formed, a solid core. No, it was already there. Now, planet formation. According to the superrelativity theory, planet formation occurs as a result of smaller neutronium spheres that are orbiting a larger neutronium sphere, a centralized star. Right there, what you have is HL Tauri. That's an actual picture of a star forming with the planets forming around it. The darker areas are where the planets are forming because they've sucked up all the gas in that area. So there's you can see bands forming from them pulling all the gas into their atmosphere. So HL Tauri is a centralized star that is gathering hydrogen. Hydrogen also forms around the neutronium core of the evolving planets within the forming solar system. The planets have become brown dwarfs. A small, highly pressurized atmosphere is created around the planet's core, and the fusion process begins at that core. Eventually, the planet, all the elements of the periodic table are created. And you notice here on Earth, we have all the elements of the periodic table. You think they fell from the sky, like physicists say, just from random meteors? I don't think so. They were built right here. It has to be, because those are all the elements are needed to form compounds and such to make rock and the crust and all the other elements in chemistry and compounds necessary to form life. These formations cool and form the crust and mantle. Eventually, the new planet's atmosphere has additional gases added to it via volcanic outgassing, which is very important. The key gas that is added is water vapor. You ever wonder how those oceans came about? They were made right here. They didn't come, astrophysicists, well, that was from comets that fell. When was the last time you saw a comet with water fall on the Earth? It's nonsense. The water vapor was made right here. The water vapor then begins to precipitate, and then the first oceans, lakes, and rivers are formed. Eventually, biochemical processes happen that add additional oxygen to the atmosphere. At this point, all the foundational elements required to trigger more complex life forms are created within this primordial soup, and life emerges on the new planet. A local fusion process within the planet's core is necessary to produce the fundamental elements of nature. Later on, the elements combine to form chemical compounds. Eventually, the more advanced forms of primitive life emerge. All of this is part of the intelligent design. It's a masterwork of creation. Otherwise, its planets are never going to be able to establish life unless they have all the elements. And the way to guarantee that is that they're made right at the planetary level. evidence for the neutronium core. So there is some evidence here that I've been able to discover. Earth has all the naturally occurring atomic elements on the periodic table, just as I said. The most reasonable explanation is that they were all created in the core of the Earth through the fusion process. First, you start with hydrogen, then helium, then carbon, silicon, oxygen. Perfect. It's the perfect system. The manufacturing plant is right in the core of the Earth. If there's if there is fusion going on, we should see geoneutrinos coming from the center of the Earth. This is something I thought about, and then I started to search for it. They have been detected by the Camland Barricino experiments. Then I talked to Dr. Mikio Fukuhara, also has theorized that there is nuclear fusion happening in the core of the Earth. So he's agreeing with what I'm saying. He's looking for evidence, not only in the Earth, but Jupiter, Saturn, and brown dwarfs, just like I said. He has also hypothesized that the nuclear transmutation occurring within Earth formed nitrogen, oxygen, and water. These are key elements in order for life to form. Their evidence is mounting. It just needs to be properly interpreted by scientists. Now, the next thing I went to look for is the gravitational field increasing as you go deeper, because you're getting closer to the core of the neutronium, which is very powerful. So normal concepts and ideas about this is that as you go deeper, the soil and the rock formations are putting out their own gravitational field and pulling that way. And so the gravitational field was thought to weaken. But according to my theory, it can't happen that way. It's going to go stronger all the way to the core, because that's where the strongest gravitational pull is. So I talked to Mark Barton, PhD in physics, who actually did measurements. I was looking specifically, this is Mark Barton talking, I was looking specifically if the gravitational strength increased as we went deeper and made measurements. If you want a rough answer, it's well known. For a fair way, gravity goes up very slightly as you go down. More confirmation, more evidence. It just keeps mounting. This is an actual image of the black hole at the center of our universe. This image is the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. I'm in the Milky Way. Although we cannot see the black hole itself because it is completely dark, glowing gas around it reveals a telltale signature, a dark central region called a shadow, surrounded by a bright ring-like structure. This confirms my prediction that hydrogen will heat up and glow around the black hole, and if enough gas is gathered around the black hole, it will become a visible star that conceals the black hole at its core. Most of the time, a star is formed by smaller sized neutronium spheres that we call neutron stars. So then I talk about the additional evidence, supernovas, they leave behind black holes and neutron stars, that this has all been observed. This is exactly what astronomers have observed. They've just misinterpreted the observation. The galaxy formation happens, as I said earlier. This is another image of the Milky Way black hole. Astronomers believe that supermassive black holes lie at the center of virtually all large galaxies, even our own Milky Way. Astronomers can detect them by watching for their effects on nearby stars and gas. In order for this to happen, various sized neutronium spheres and neutron plasma have to have existed as a product of the Big Bang. Astronomers have verified that large black holes lie at the center of virtually all large galaxies. It's mighty coincidental. There's a black hole at the center of every galaxy we look at. That's more evidence. It's just got to be interpreted properly. Continuing the evidence that the universe is actually collapsing, we go here to the big crunch. And this image here is showing that walls are being formed in our universe as all the galaxies are starting to move toward the centralized regions where there's extremely powerful gravitational field. So that's what I call the big crunch, or others have also called it that. The slowing of the speed of light has also been noted. It'll be a subject of another speech. Um, that is proving that, because we know that the speed of light slows down in the gravitational field. Therefore, if the universe is collapsing, gravitational field is growing stronger and stronger in the universe as it shoots out from these gigantic black holes. This will cause the speed of light to slow down, and this has been verified by a person that I have in my book, uh, an astronomer who has written papers on the subject, and they were not refuted. The Hubble constant has been repeatedly and continually falsified. So that was the key ingredient that they used to form the expanding universe theory. This is now crumbling because they're finding exceptions to the Hubble constant all over the universe. In other words, what they were saying initially is the further away the galaxy from us, the faster it's moving away from us. So they kept measuring further out. It sort of generally followed that rule. But now, as they've done many, many, many more measurements, they see that there's galaxy groups moving this direction, that direction, and they're moving, consolidating, moving together. So that breaks that model. But good. But the astronomers are not going to yield. The mainstream astronomers, they're trying to make all these excuses for why all this stuff is happening. And so, according to my cosmological model, the universe is not expanding, it's collapsing. There's a great deal of evidence that contradicts the universe is still undergoing a uniform expansion. Astronomers have discovered superstructures, I was just talking about, consisting of hundreds of millions of galaxies clumped together in a series of giant walls. The Milky Way and Andromeda are not separating, they're coming together. We're moving, this is a known fact, it's been measured. We're moving at 1.4 million miles an hour and are converging at a thing called the Great Attractor. This is going to happen. It may take billions of years, but we're not moving apart. We're collapsing. That's why we're accelerating. That 1.4 million miles an hour is going faster and faster the closer we get. That's why things are accelerating. It was never dark energy. That was a dreamed up excuse for expansion. What's happening is when we're measuring these galaxies that are accelerating, they're actually falling toward their big Titan-sized black holes. That's what's causing them to accelerate away from us. And we're not the center of the universe, by the way. And that's the other theory says that that's what we are, and that's ridiculous. There's no way that we're the center of the universe. So we're in the big crunch. In time, the universe will collapse into a group of Titan-sized black holes. This image is showing them. You see these areas where they're coming together. All the lines are drawing together. These are Titan black hole areas where galaxies, hundreds of them, thousands even, are being pulled toward these things. We're already in the advanced stage of collapse. These black holes will eventually consume all the remaining galaxies. At the same time, the Titans will also merge and the cosmic egg will form. Once this happens, our universe will become dark. Once the maximum amount of condensed neutronium matter is achieved, the Fiorentino threshold will be exceeded. This is the trigger that causes the next Big Bang. In this moment, the core of the cosmic egg will achieve super high temperatures, trillions of degrees centigrade. The core will transform into exploding neutronium quark plasma. The expansion of this plasma state will cause a reduction of the gravitational field strength within the black hole. There's a whole big explanation there that I could get into, but it's in my book. We're going to skip that because of time. This will further destabilize the cosmic egg structure. The exploding plasma will move to the surface and the Big Bang will happen and all the gas will come out and all the spinning spheres will come out of various sized neutron stars and black holes, and the next universe begins. So now we can get to Any discussions, Joey, you want to have questions or whatever the people may have out there that are listening?
Okay, so I have made a list of questions, and
Excellent.
honestly, they're pretty provocative and they're more for discussion than a
Sure.
hard answer because we may just not know.
Okay.
But so Lori put up, and you can all check it out in the chat room. Thank you, Lori, for always helping out with this. This is how you can access Mark's Master of Reality. So that was excellent. We're getting a lot of comments about how interesting it was. Ronald asked a question. You were talking about God and intelligent design, and he wanted to know: do we all life in the universe then comes from the same source?
Exactly. Yes, that's true. That's the beauty of this thing. It really kind of makes sense. He wouldn't, for centuries we thought, well, God just created the universe for us, the earth, and we're the center. That was never right. And that was very attackable by scientists, and they were able to make religion look bad because of that. Uh, the people of that time just didn't have enough knowledge about the universe to come up with an understandable, sensible theory. What really makes sense is that we're just part of a very big picture. Earth is just another planet among billions and trillions of other planets, equally as important as us to God. And there's been many near-death experiencers who come back and talked about the aliens, as we would call them, extraterrestrials, the existence, how even many humans, we're in an avatar. We call the human being. And there are avatars for all different types of beings all over the universe, and they're all loved by God just as we are. We're a part of that big picture, and I'd like to see us join in on that. So, yes, you're right. All the stars, all the planets, all the universes, all the dimensions, everything is part of God.
And it's my understanding that the Catholic Church has really moved towards that. It was, when I was a kid, it was like, oh, if EBEs, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, whatever you want to call them, were to appear, that would collapse every religion. And I don't think that religions are saying that anymore.
No, they've been quietly, they have a science department. The Catholic
Yeah.
Church has studied science. They want to make sure they're not out of the loop. They want to be able to adjust when the time is right, their theology, their doctrine, their everything, so that they can come in agreement what we all know to be true. We're still learning what is true.
Right.
And as those things happen, they're looking in and they're staying abreast of all the latest. The actual first Big Bang came from a Catholic priest. The first theory of the Big Bang was from a Catholic priest. So they know that the evidence of UFOs is mounting. That means there's extraterrestrials. That means we're not the center of the universe. That means they're going to have to back off of their religious concepts and ideas that we're the only beings in the universe, we're special, or all of that stuff is going to have to be kind of moved aside, and a universal kind of concept of God and religion will come forward.
Right. And this goes all the way back. My colleague Craig and I did a show on our Sinister Mysteries about Roger Bacon. This was the 1200s. He was working very closely. He was a monk, and he was working very closely with the Pope on these encyclopedias of the universe. So this isn't a new thing. It's just these factions, which we'll get into that too. So our colleagues Charles and Ronald from ERT Radio, where you can hear this show rebroadcast on Wednesday nights, audio only at 10 p.m. Mark, is there any evidence that maybe this isn't the first iteration of the universe? Maybe this whole thing has happened before?
Yeah, I did, and I couldn't find it. I was just reading one day, and I came across this article that the scientists said they found an echo inside of the cosmic wave background from a previous Big Bang.
Wow.
And I should have saved that article. Doggone it.
Wow.
And
That
so,
is wow.
so even, as this one spread out with the electromagnetic radiation, there was another one, boom, and it came out, and boom, and they came out. So they found the echo buried within the microwave background. So there is some
Wow.
evidence that, yeah, this has happened before, and it will happen again. It's the beauty of eternal creation. Has a starting point, no ending point. From then on in, this universe will continue to go back and forth from one state to the other. I just gave you the details, the technical details of how it will work.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so let's get into and folks out in the audience, I will keep an eye on the chat room. So if you have more questions, so I'm literally rolling up my sleeves here, subconsciously, and got conscious about it. So why would, and again, these are deep theological, so I apologize, but again, in the form of discussion, not putting you on the spot. Multiple universes. Any idea why, or through NDEs? Folks, you'll remember when Mark comes on, he studied NDEs in detail because there's so much information coming in
Yes.
that makes your theories work, which is outstanding. I love that, and that's why I'm so happy we connected, or one of the reasons. But why would God create? So you have infinite galaxies, or not infinite, but you have numerous galaxies, numerous planets, numerous life forms. Why then have multiple or parallel universes as well?
The question should be, why not?
Okay.
If you can create one, why not two?
Right.
Or three? Or an infinite amount? There's nothing restricting the Almighty, the all powerful, and the act of creation. It just kind of, to me, because that question is something I've given a lot of thought about, and it makes things more hard to comprehend and complex because it gets circular in your mind, because all of this eternity and infinity is hard to grasp for finite beings like ourselves who
Right.
know nothing but beginnings and endings. And here we're talking about something that some being that always existed, which is difficult to gather. I exist. That's the answer. And this being has the power to do that just by power of intention, by thought. Um, if you can make one universe, and in that universe there's loads of star systems, so we know that he likes lots of stuff.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
There's no reason why there isn't other universes. And in one NDE, the person leaves our universe, because you have to realize on the other side, you're not bound by time or speed or anything. It's by pure thought. He leaves our universe so that he can look at it as just now this glowing ball. And he looks around at the rest of the area around the glowing ball, and over great distances, he sees another glowing ball, and another glowing ball, and another glowing ball, and another, and it just expands outward forever. There's no reason why that can't be. And it appears to be from that NDE experience that that's exactly what the Father has done. And he's continually creating new ones. And another NDE, a lady that I talked to, Claire Dennis, I believe she said she saw him create a universe, just like literally slinging it out there. To him, time, billions of years is like that. There is no time, so there's no problem with it taking one day to do this and one day to. It all happens basically at once, on from their perspective, and yeah, there's multiple, and there's evidence that we can get so far from whistleblowers and stuff. There are also other dimensions, which makes sense, where the laws of physics are different. Less dense universes, more dense universes. Time doesn't exist in some of these universes. That means the ether has a different nature altogether.
Right.
Yeah, there's no limit.
I love it because it's all aligned. Scientists are talking about sometimes those fears that the person who had the NDE, sometimes they touch and interesting things happen. Also, too, Jordy Rose, who I talk about not real often, but sometimes, um, was talking about quantum computing, the D wave computers. And he said in this lecture, probably about a decade ago, we will use these quantum computers to go into other universes and extract things that we need. So that's from the computing field. You have the science field, you have the NDE, some things for the medical field. I like those kind of parallels and patterns. That's what I look for. I'm very committed to transdisciplinary studies. Because higher education is so compartmentalized by design. So I love this. Lori's asking your thoughts about portals.
Yeah, I get into that a little bit in the book too. Portals are just gateways to other dimensions. So, and possibly other universes. Um, in my book, I talk about our ability to perhaps create stargates that basically open portals, right?
Right?
And there, many people say there are portals on the planets at different locations. My experience is these portals open primarily due to magnetic resonant fields, which causes a distortion in the space that's necessary to create an opening to some other dimension or something. There may be other ways to do this using electrostatic fields. We only have so many tools that we can work with to create a portal opening. Um, and I talk about in the book that we probably accelerate light to faster than light speeds and emit a high frequency radiation coming from a framework, the Stargate framework, or whatever, that causes the space in that area to vibrate at such high frequencies, it opens a portal.
Right.
And there's many cases where we have seen UFOs just suddenly appear. There's like a green mist that happens first, and then they show up. So those are interdimensional people who've mastered the technology that could just open a portal up and shoot right through from one dimension or one galaxy or one universe to another.
Right.
Nifty technology. It's rumored that we have that. I don't know. I talk about how I think it could be built with us here in this planet, but that's neat stuff. I believe it is happening. Yeah, and that's a very efficient way to get across the universe or into other dimensions or whatever.
Right.
Fascinating.
And the lore around Nikola Tesla is that he was working with magnetic resonance fields and experienced present, past, future. I subscribe to that. He's an interesting guy. I've done some shows
I
about him.
I built a device. I call it the magnetovortex device that I've been experimenting with. I I've been going back and forth whether I want to do this experiment or not, but I think I'm going to give it a try to open up my own little vortex of some sort of maybe a time distortion. I'll have to put some equipment around it to measure to see if clock rates change or something else opens up. But this device is computer controlled. It causes circular rotation of a magnetic field at very high speeds. I just haven't tried it at every frequency. I think it's going to be a frequency that does something that might be interesting. It's one of the many experiments that I'm working on right now.
Wow, I think Tesla caused a brownout in New York City when he fired his up. So
Yeah, he did some amazingly powerful
yeah.
and interesting experiments.
So another question from the chat room. Charles asks, does consciousness have the possibility of moving into and out of these other dimensions, times, and places?
Ultimately, that's how the advanced aliens do it.
Mhm.
And that's how God, I think what's going to eventually boil down to the raw, pure truth here is that consciousness is the only thing that is real.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
all of that which we see now is coming from the universal consciousness of God, as if we were all living in his dream. And we are individual threads of his tapestry. And what we do when we finish our life and return home is we bring back the experiences that he can't have unless we come into a physical form to have those experiences, because there's limitations here. And then these limitations allow us to struggle and experience joy and sadness and all, which is the real stuff,
Yeah.
the really important stuff. And all this physical stuff is part of a vast consciousness. People liken it to the matrix or whatever. Okay, you could say that it's a shortcut description, but I think consciousness is where it's at. And the one who masters his consciousness, develops his psychic abilities, can master the universe and do all kinds of amazing things. And Jesus says this, you shall do things greater than I. It's just a matter of believing.
And is that where the title of the book derives?
In part, I mean, it was really all about describing reality. That the theory of super relativity is a reality model.
Mhm.
It's just talking about the mechanics. What what we've talked about so far is all the mechanical aspects of how things work. The mechanical rules, the laws of physics, everything that's coming from consciousness of the Father, of God, of this supreme being. I exist. And so does everything else because of the I.
Awesome. So you seem to know a lot about black holes, and there's a term, I believe, for the edge of a black hole, the event horizon. I've never being a language guy, I've never understood that term. Can you kind of break down, and if you know where that term derived from?
Yeah, it's all it is it's the around a perimeter around what I think is really nothing but a super dense neutronium sphere. When you can get denser and denser neutronium, when it gets to a certain level of density and emits a really strong gravitational field that comes out, and that perimeter region where it goes black,
Mm-hmm.
it's only there because light can no longer bounce off of something, come back and out again. No light is coming below that event horizon. No light, no electromagnetic radiation can get out of there. And that's why it's black. It's dark because you can't bounce light off of it. Any light shot at it just goes in and stays in. You never see it again. And so that's what that is. It's just the area where the gravity is so strong that light can escape. Right at that event horizon.
Right. Lori asks, what is your position on the Akashic records?
It's called the Akashic Records, the Book of Life. There's several different. That's a very real thing. Edgar Cayce used to go in his trances and tap into that book to read stuff, get information, and come back and help people. Yeah, I firmly believe in it. Have I seen it myself? No, but I've read enough and seen enough NDE reports talking about it. Psychics have talked about it that I know are the real deal.
Right.
And they say it exists. It's got all the information, all the history, future, past, and present of everything and everyone that's ever existed, right down to the very atom. Everything is in there. It's part of the creation of God.
Great. And Lori, thanks for asking that, because that echoes back to last week. Thomas Lane was on the show, an author and a spiritualist. That's great. So, Mark, a lot of what you're doing, the way John Mack was and encouraged us all to, is subvert or smash to bits the dominant paradigms. Now, the people who are right in the opening of the show, I talk about the gatekeepers and guardians. Um, L.A. Marzulli calls them the archaeological fascists when it comes to the physical history of the world, same as Graham Hancock. What is really going on? These aren't stupid people that aren't capable of absorbing new information. So, what is going on? Why are these paradigms that, as you say, and said in your presentation tonight specifically, are so wrong? Why do they perpetuate?
Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Yeah,
I agree. I call it kind of a willful ignorance. They think they know what's real and what's true, and it's based primarily on what they can see, hear, sense, and touch, and anything that doesn't can't be measured just doesn't exist. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. I can't see space, it doesn't exist. Of course, that's wrong. And the problem is they take science and they turn it into a religion,
yeah,
their own religion, which they use. If you speak against their talking points, their beliefs, it's blasphemy. You're a heretic. The name calling starts to come out.
right.
And they are really the ones that have the primitive thinking, not the spiritual people. My goal is to get spiritualism combined, spiritualism and religion back with science, because spiritualism and religion is above science. Science comes from that. That's something that would literally make their heads explode for physicists, because
Right.
they think only science. Science is the big thing, the real thing, the master. And it's not. It's just a level below the super consciousness of God. Everything that is in science comes from God.
Right.
And they would never, right now, this group of people, they just are not able to expand their consciousness enough to allow for this truth to come forward. They're gripping and holding on tight to the past. And
Right.
that's very frustrating.
I got very excited, and through your book and just kind of growing up and reading more things, and I got so hooked by what the bleep do we know, and this is the nexus between science and religion, and I was like, oh, quantum physics is the answer, and I read everything, Gary Zukav's Woolley Masters and Fritjof Capra and Stephen Hawking and Michael Talbot and all these David Bohm. I have them all and I read them all. And talking about the new mystics and Indra's web and all of that. Is quantum physics still that nexus? Are there things to be salvaged, or do we need to put that away? And if we do, where do we look?
I look at quantum mechanics just like Einstein looked at it. It's not a complete theory. It's really all it is a fancy tool set for analyzing experiments where there's a lot of measurements, hundreds of thousands, millions. You do statistical probabilities on that, and it's a tool. Uh, what Niels Bohr and Heisenberg and those other guys, they elevated it to the theory of everything and a godlike stature in science. And basically because he is able to predict these experiments where we do, measurements and stuff, and that accounts for wave theory, which is what makes it so correct. And when it makes these measurements and these predictions. But it really, there's nothing to quantum mechanics. You can't explain anything with quantum mechanics. And they know it. That's why there's like 28 different interpretations. They should be ashamed of themselves. Hang your heads low. You can't even interpret what the thing means. You're arguing with each other over the meaning in quantum theory. It's laughable. How can you count on something you don't even know what it is? You don't understand it. And there's really nothing to understand because There is no force of probabilities. Things do not happen because of probabilities. Probabilities happen because of determinism, actions, forces, and actions interacting with each other. Um, Quantum mechanics is a rabbit hole. It's a dead end.
Right.
It's nice, it has some interesting little novel ideas in it and everything, but classical field theory and religion is the way to know the truth.
Sorry, here. I'm in here to keep it going. Huh. All right. Here's some of the big ones. So the universe is contracting. Is there any evidence, Mark, that it's already swallowed up some galaxies?
Oh yeah, there's
Oh,
black,
okay.
there's black hole. There's objects out there. There's like the Great Attractor.
Yeah.
That if you look at the night sky and the Milky Way, and you look straight up through the middle of it,
Yep.
that's where we're going right now.
Yeah.
We're on the far end of the galaxy, and eventually we'll spin around to the edges at the front, and we'll be heading in that direction. We'll have a clear shot. But that's hundreds of millions of years from now.
Right.
We're having trouble seeing what's actually there, the Great Attractor. If it's a black hole, it's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's being pulled towards a Shapley cluster, an even bigger one.
Wow.
And these things could be hundreds of light years or more across. And they're just a dead spot. No radiation is going to come from this. So it's not like this thing is going to shine and let us know it's there. It's just going to be a cold spot.
Wow.
And,
so is it possible? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great, huge gravitational strength, force coming from there. It's something to be taken seriously. It's a titan.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's already happened, and there's loads of these things all throughout the universe. And go ahead.
Can a black hole theoretically swallow another black hole, or will they more combine? Or
I think one of the measurements, the gravitational field measurements, detected. At least I know 2 neutron stars for sure, spun around each other and then went in.
Wow.
They may have detected 2 black holes doing the same thing too. I'd have to go back and look because they've had several detections now.
Right.
Yeah. Eventually, yeah, they have to merge, and because there are really huge ones out there.
Wow. So my understanding is that our sun and any star will eventually depower and die. What do you know which will happen first, the death of our sun or the collapse of the universe reaching us?
Oh, well, the death of the sun is going to be about the time we hit the in very 4.5-5 billion years.
Give or take.
Assuming that the fuel runs out, it turns into a red giant. Somewhere in that time frame, we'll be approaching the Great Attractor, and if it is a black hole, we'll look up at the night sky, and this is 4.5 billion years from now. If we're even still here, because the sun may not burn at a steady rate that we can live here for 4.5. If we don't build Project Sunshade, which is in my book, we're going to have to leave at some point because the sun's going to burn too high.
Right.
But 4.5 billion years from now, we're going to be falling into that black hole. So when we look at the night sky, there's going to be just this huge black area.
Wow.
And then stars around the rest, and we'll notice weird things in the tides and stuff, and it's not going to be fun. We'll have to be out of here long before that time comes. So yeah, the sun going red giant and us running into the Great Attractor are roughly the same time frame.
Which is fascinating. It's almost like a double fail-safe, not a fail-safe. Well, depending. I guess my last question of the evening is probably the most provocative, right? As it should be. So if we're looking at an eventual extinction, right, which is hard for the human ego, where we're process, evolution, technology, next thing, transhumanism, cyborg, all this, but placing your consciousness in a mechanical body, all these different things. So humanity is always very forward looking. The next thing, we're going to the next thing. So it's very unsettling to go. And of course, the time scale is huge. The time scale is huge. But still, there's a lineage, right, of generations and offspring and all this kind of stuff. There will be an extinction at some point as all of this happens. Again, not asking you to speak for God, because we can't. How does that figure into the plan? Is there anything coming out of NDEs or anything? Why we would go through these big and then go, and then something new begins?
Well, the NDEs are indicating that something big and bad is going to happen, a lot of them. But it varies.
Okay.
It's not consistent. Yet this one says in so much time there's going to be a nuclear war. This one says volcanoes are going to go off. Right. This one says there's going to be an asteroid. Something is weird about the future, and they're making these predictions because these people are sincere.
Yeah.
And they're saying, Jesus showed me this, or there's going to be a war, China is going to attack. It keeps changing as time goes on. So the future somehow is kind of like moving, and depending on what time the person had their NDE, there's a new future depending on the feedback as they come back and tell their story and change things. But you can be guaranteed that the Earth is going to run out of time. We just don't know when. It could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
We could be hit by an asteroid tomorrow. The sun could suddenly change its cycle and start burning 10 degrees hotter or something. And that extra radiation coming in will create a massive global warming and wipe out millions, if not billions of people. The key here, the thing that I'm trying to stress, is that we have to get the technology so we can leave the planet. That's how you prevent the extinction. This is what all advanced species do. They leave the planet because the planet and the solar system they're on are temporary. Right. So if they want to continue for millions and billions of years till the end of this cycle, they have to be able to leave. That's the thing. We have to graduate, and the way we graduate is develop anti-gravity and faster than light space travel.
Right.
We have to do that, and the sooner the better, because we're in jeopardy as long as we don't have that technology available to us.
Right. That's good. And that's kind of what Lori says here. We will have to already have left for another universe, maybe further away from the black hole. Could be.
That was my plan.
Yeah.
We have plenty of time to work on this, but that's what we got to do. We have to have this technology. It's really important, and it bothers me that the government is keeping it secret to themselves.
Right.
We're going to need massive transports if something really bad is going to happen. My biggest concern is the Earth's core. If I'm right about neutronium in the Earth's core, our core is unstable. And how do we know that? Look at the crust. It's cracked all the way around. There are volcanoes, hundreds of them, earthquakes happening every few minutes. This is not a stable planet. Right. And in some cases, planets can blow. Because the pressure from the fusion process is so great. Notice how the Earth's core never cools. It's been 4.5 billion years. Don't you think it should have cooled down by now?
Mm-hmm.
Something is keeping it red hot.
Yeah.
Thousands of degrees. It's not getting any cooler. And so that's my concern. Is that going to, so I'm leaning toward the volcanic.
Right.
Keep an eye on the Earth's core,
Right. Yeah. So it's unsettling, but it's hopeful. And folks, these past several weeks, that's been when Patricia Corey was on and all. We can do this. We can do this. We just have to get our act together. And Mark, you and I in the audience, we're preaching to the choir. It's these powers that be that are so fixed who their political power has become their religion. That's superseded a larger order where they don't see all people as equal and elevating together. I'm a simple kind of guy from a working class Sicilian background where I say a rising tide lifts all boats. If I improve, those around me improve,
Right,
and
right.
that ripples out. So we have our work to do, but we have our forums to do it. Thank goodness they're not shutting us down yet. They muted 38 seconds of our last conversation in
Yeah,
72 countries. It's a weird thing that Facebook told me.
yeah. I'd like to get to the bottom of that.
I know, I
I
know.
wish they'd have
Unless
told you what they muted.
Yeah, if there's anyone out there from any of the 72, they only told me, they didn't tell me what the timestamp was. They just said 38 seconds of this show has been muted in 72 countries and municipalities. So they're listening. If anybody is doubting that they're listening, they're listening.
I've listened to two shows where I'm talking about anti-gravity, and there's been an edit in both of those.
Yeah, there
Right when
you
I
go.
start talking about anti-gravity, I see a cut.
Yeah.
I didn't put it in there. You didn't.
Yeah.
Something's going. Yeah, they're listening.
Yeah. So thank you. I call you my friend now. So thank you, my friend, so much. This was wonderful. The audience got a lot out of it. We will see you again on April 14th to talk about the speed of light.
Speed of light. Maybe I'll mix in a little special relativity because they're related.
Right.
And there's a lot of controversy in that stuff. A
Yeah.
lot of things people don't know about that they're going to learn the truth, the ugly truth about what physicists have been covering up.
Well, there you go. Let's do that. And that was good. That was a good button to the end of the show. But I promised you a chance. You talked a little bit about your experiments, but in a minute or two, where are you at?
Yeah, I'm looking at two experiments for unity gain free energy type things. I'm really having fun doing that. I'm thinking about starting a company, like I was saying, a company where I can go out and help people develop either anti-gravity or these unity gain things. So there's experiments that I'm doing. And if something comes from one of these, the anti-gravity experiment, I learned a lot from that experiment. Going to write a paper that I think is going to be foundational, another breakthrough paper like the one that's on ResearchGate now.
Nice.
It has to do with gravity and anti-gravity and the things I learned from doing the experiments. Even when something doesn't work, you can learn something, sometimes more than when it does work. And
Yeah.
certainly, I think I've learned how I can actually make one now if I had the right equipment, which and access to a lot more energy. But
Good. Keep going, because I
yeah,
know
that's what I'm
people are
doing.
watching, and they'll help. I'm really looking forward when you get your equipment and set it up. If you see orbs or light worms or nuts and bolts,
Just for
you
fun,
know,
I'm gonna be looking for that kind of stuff.
yeah, that's everybody. Watch the skies. I'm wearing my Skyview hat tonight. Very appropriate, and always my Albert Einstein shirt when you come on. So,
Thank you.
all right, my friend, be well. Enjoy your evening. Stay in touch, and we're all rooting for you. We are all
Thanks.
rooting for you.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, everyone, take care. I'm going to drop Mark out real quick here. I just do want to say next week is our 3-year anniversary that we're celebrating with Constance Victoria Briggs. Her book, The Moon's Galactic History, a look at the moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth. So excited to continue our conversation that we started with her encyclopedia, especially with Artemis and Orion and these missions. And do you know that the head of NASA, I think his name is Bill Nelson, he said that China is planning 3 trips to the moon this year, and they could claim it as their own, the moon as a territory. So we are in really, really interesting times here. Really looking forward to that. Next time Mark comes on the show, I'm going to ask him what he thinks about, claiming territory to these other satellites, moons, all of that kind of thing. So I will talk to you soon. Peace, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me.